We live in a world that celebrates hustle, a world that I have watched and individuals for over 20 years, like you and me, founders, educators, parents, and communities, lose the very passion they once loved. Not because they weren't capable, not because they weren't skilled, but because we have been told that the only way to be successful is to be in the mindset of constant grind. You all have seen it. Some of us have done it. Hashtag hustle. Hashtag grind. I know I have. And what I've noticed is talented people, visionary people have lost their spark. We applaud the founder and the CEO that never takes a vacation. We admire the executive that's up at midnight sending emails. Is that you? Is that you? And we praise the student that's juggling multiple activities with no sleep. But one of the things that we don't ask is at what cost? What is the cost? We live in a culture that celebrates hustle. It says wake up early, never sleep, work harder than the next person next to you, sleep later. And if you're exhausted, good. That means you're working hard. It's when that eye is twitching. I know you all have had an eye twitch. It's when you're sleeping at night and you wait, your mind is constantly going. You can't go to sleep. And you look up, it's 3 a.m. We've all been there. But what happens when the cost becomes us? All of us. We're chasing that dollar, that next level of promotion, the next win, the next win, the next win. But I have a question for you. When was the last time you felt truly successful without feeling exhausted? Let's sit with that question. When was the last time you felt truly successful without feeling exhausted? Your eye wasn't twitching. You were sleeping at night. When was that last time? Because what I've seen is a pattern repeat itself again and again. But when that hustle and grind takes away our peace, impacts our family, and impacts our joy, it is not success. So we have to really look at the patterns that we see in our lives and make a shift and make a change. Because when our families are impacted, when our people that work beside us are impacted, it doesn't produce success. But one of the things that I remember where my first understanding of success was with my grandfather. He was an entrepreneur, yes, but more than anything, he was a builder of people, of opportunity, and of legacy. He cared more about his purpose than his profit. And one of the things that I've really watched and learned from him, that success that destroys you is not success at all. As we watched him, we had a front row seat. My sisters and my family had a front row seat to watch him. And what I noticed is that him building successfully, it was more about sustainability. It was more about the impact that he made on others. And the lesson is not because people care so little, it's because a lot of times we care so little about ourselves. And it's all about the hustle and the grind. And we forget about ourselves and those that are connected to us. But what I believe is that we need a mind shift. Can I hear you guys say mind shift? Because when you think about hustle, it's about do more, be more, prove more. You see the more in that hustle, in that grind. Hashtag hustle, hashtag grind. We see that again and again and again when we're in that hustle and grind mindset. But when we want to shift that mindset, we need to be looking more at harmony. And harmony, when you're operating in harmony, those around you are doing well, and so are you. It's alignment. It is about alignment. Your decisions get clearer. When you don't have clarity in your vision and when you're just in the hustle and the grind mindset, you don't really accomplish as much as you think you are accomplishing. Your energy returns. Action stops feeling forced. How many of you in that hustle and the grind mindset notice that at the end of it, you don't feel like you've accomplished as much as you have? I know I've been there. So we need a mind shift because it's bigger than us. It's more than you that's impacted when you're constantly in the hustle and grind mindset. Because burnout just doesn't impact entrepreneurs and educators. It impacts all of us. Think about that mother. When she's exhausted, the children feel it. When that executive is worn out, the staff feel it. When communities are impacted, communities feel it. It doesn't just impact you. It impacts all of us because it is connected. When you think about those that you are working around, and like, for example, when you walk into a room, you can tell when someone is exhausted. Because when we're constantly in the mode of the hustle and the grind, people around us feel it. So you're probably saying, Yolanda, what do we do? How do you do it? Because it's easier said than done. It's easy to jump right back into that hustle and grind mindset. And so I have some things I want to share with you that we can be doing, some that I have started doing, but it has to be intentional. We have to be intentional with what we're doing, or it doesn't get done. So inspiration with that application changes nothing. So here is what we can be doing. Schedule rest like you schedule work. You know, we hear the saying, work hard, play hard. But do you rest hard? Do we rest hard? When you put it on your calendar, how many have let people take it off the calendar? A crisis comes up, and they've pulled you into the crisis when it was a lack of preparation on their end. When you schedule it, don't allow anyone to disrupt it, to take that off of your calendar. Check in with yourself like you check in on others. How many of you are always checking on other people? How are you doing? What's going on with you? Think about those of you that have children, when you would go to the school and get in that pickup line, some of you still doing it, the pickup line. And your child is coming out, or you're at home and you're waiting for them to get off the bus. You notice something is off. They don't seem like themselves. And they get into the car. They think we have magic because we can figure it out. Like, did you have a hard day? Or you walk into that office and your colleagues, you can tell when something's out there not the same. The CEO, something's going on with them. Or you go home and your husband or your wife had a hard day. Can't you tell? But one of the things that we don't do is we don't do that check-in with ourselves. We just keep pushing and going and going. But that discernment that you're having and those things that you see in other people, we have to learn to see it in ourselves and help ourselves, give ourselves a pause. And when we do that, we will learn how to say no to some things that we need to say no to. So check in on yourself like you check in on others. Delegate without guilt. Some of you are too guilty. You spent 2 weeks interviewing that person, and they were the best candidate for the job. And they start, and you give them nothing to do because you feel like, I can do this better than them. But you hired them to do it. You're not only cheating yourself and wearing yourself out, you're cheating them out of their growth. So delegate without guilt. It's okay. You hired them to do that job. This one is a good one. Define enough. What is enough? When are you finished? We don't define enough, so we keep going and going and going. Define enough. And enough when you were 20 is not the same enough now if you're older than 20. 10 years later, that same enough, I can't go as long as I used to without sleep. So define what enough is. And once you're able to define enough, you will know when you need to stop. So define what enough is for you in this season. In the project that you're working on, what is enough? When is it done? Measure impact, not just output. Not all work is good work. Not all work gives you the outcome that you want. Think about what you're working on now. Is it going to get you to where you say you want to be? It's not about producing. It's about what is that outcome going to be because you put that work in. So being able to measure impact instead of just output. So what does moving from hustle to harmony look like for you? Because it's important for us to think about that because it impacts all of us. And so my invitation and question for you, what would shift if success didn't require self-sacrifice? What if ambition and well-being could coexist? Because I believe it can. The next generation is watching us to see how we do that well. Are we doing that well? Are we, people use the word balancing. Sometimes it's more than balance. And the next generation is watching and said, they're successful, but what did they sacrifice for that success? Was it family? Was it their health? Was it their mental health? My invitation, what would change in your workplace, in your home, and in your leadership if you stop chasing productivity and applause, started choosing alignment? There is a better way, a more human way, and it is available to all of us. And so burnout was the old blueprint. Harmony is the upgrade. So now who's ready to go from hustle to harmony? Thank you.